Brill and the Dragators by Peggy Downing. Chapter 4. Trapped. An hour later, Mayopar came to invite Brill to join the prince for breakfast. They ate waffles with fudge syrup and chocolate-covered sausages. Dessert was chocolate-frosted donuts. Brill declined dessert. While the prince was being dressed, the tailor measured Brill for new clothes. The tailor removed a row of pins from between his lips. "You have strong muscles. You must have worked hard." "I lived on a farm." "The prince is very flabby," the tailor whispered. "Perhaps you can get him to exercise. It's not healthy to eat so much without exercising." Brill nodded, but he knew there was not much chance he could change the prince's habits. The royal shoemaker entered then to measure Brill's feet. He shook his head sadly when he saw the worn sandals. "Never again will you have to wear such shabby shoes," he promised. When the prince was dressed, he called for Brill. "It's a beautiful day to go to my play park, but first I'll introduce you to the rest of my family." Brill followed the prince as he waddled down the wide stairs and into the throne room where the emperor and queen were sitting on large thrones upholstered with gold velvet. Brill and the prince walked across the thick patterned carpet. Brill felt panic. He should have asked Mayopar what he should do and say when he met the emperor. Emperor Immane was heavier than the prince. His puffy face was a reddish color and his double chins hid his neck. Queen Lera had a pretty face, and she smiled at Brill. The prince called, "Father and Mother, this is my new companion, Brill." Brill bowed on one knee. He had hoped he was doing the right thing. The emperor stared at him with hypnotic gray eyes. Finally he said, "Stand up, boy. Are you a loyal subject of the Empire?" Yes, sir." Brill nodded vigorously. "If you are loyal, you'll have a great future." Thank you, Your Majesty." Brill heard a girl's voice behind him.
"Father, can Segra and I go to the city to look in the shops?"
"You'll have to take a squadron of soldiers with you," the emperor answered. "I never know what the rebels might do."
"Yes, we'll take soldiers along. We'll be safe."
Prince Grossder said, "Florette, this is my new companion, Brill."
"Hello,"
said Florette. She was a slim girl with dark red hair and pretty features. Brill bowed his head. Florette added,
"My companion's name is Segra."
"How do you do?" said Brill. Segra smiled.
"Hello, Brill."
"We're going to spend the day at the play park," announced the prince. Brill and the prince rode to the play park in a small gold carriage pulled by a team of black horses. Mayopar sat beside the driver. He went wherever the prince went. His craggy face showed little expression, but his black eyes moved around constantly, watching for danger. Brill had the eerie feeling that Mayopar could tell what he was thinking. He tried to suppress any rebel thoughts that flashed into his mind when he was close to Mayopar. As they entered the play park gates, Prince Grossder called to the gatekeeper.
"We want to see a puppet show and a magician."
The gatekeeper rushed over with a blank paper, and he and Mayopar worked out the day's schedule. The prince ordered the driver to take them on a tour of the grounds. Brill was fascinated by the variety of things to see. They began at a row of game booths and ended up at a small zoo where monkeys and bears begged for handouts. The prince squealed as he threw them peanuts from the cart. "I don't see anyone else here. Does anyone else use the park?"
"Of course not, except for Florette and Segra. When that daft King Talder ruled, he let the city people use the park, but they were noisy and threw litter all over the place. When my father took over the empire, he closed the park. Later, he had it fitted up just for me. And because you're my companion, you can use it too."
Brill nodded. "It's very nice."
"Hey, it's better than nice. It's stupendous. I'm probably the only prince in the world with a play park like this."
"You're lucky," agreed Brill. When the carriage stopped, Brill asked, "What's that?" He pointed at the carved horses standing on the round platform.
Haven't you ever seen a merry-go-round?
The prince wrinkled up his nose as if Brill's stupidity was beyond him. Brill followed Grossder onto the platform. There was a special white horse that Brill guessed had been made for the prince. The attendant helped him mount it. Brill climbed on a horse behind the princes. The horses began to go around as the music played. A husky fellow stood in the middle, turning a crank to turn the platform. Brill tingled with excitement. It was such fun. But then he noticed the perspiration running down the operator's face. Their fun was making him work very hard.
Make it go faster,
shouted the prince, and the poor man strained to follow the orders. Brill was glad when the prince finally signaled he had had enough. They returned to the carriage and rode to the puppet theater where they watched a funny show. Brill laughed until his sides ached. The prince offered Brill chocolate-covered peanuts and raisins. Brill ate only a few, but the prince gobbled them down by the handful. The carriage moved to the magician's booth. Brill wished he knew how to do tricks like that. When the show was over, the prince shouted,
"Better learn some new tricks. I've seen all those."
The magician's eyes widened with fear, and he answered in a hoarse voice, "Yes, Your Highness." The prince ordered the carriage to return to the palace.
"How did you like my play park?"
he asked.
"I had a great time,"
answered Brill.
"There's lots more to see. We'll be back tomorrow."
Brill asked,
"Don't you ever go to school?" "I used to, but it was boring. I know how to read and write. That's all I need to know. When Father dies, I'll become emperor. Then I'll make the big decisions. But I'll appoint people to handle all the details. Father has a council to see that everything runs smoothly at the palace."
Brill frowned, but he turned away so the prince wouldn't see his scowl. How could Prince Grossder think the government existed for his pleasure? Didn't he even consider the people under him? "Oh well," thought Brill, "there's nothing I can do to change things. I might as well enjoy myself. The play park is exciting. Puppet plays and merry-go-rounds are more fun than going to school and doing jobs. I'll be careful not to say anything that will annoy Prince Grossder, but other than that, I can relax and enjoy myself." The next morning, Brill again woke up early. He dressed in a red tunic and black hose. It was fun to have so many clothes to pick from, but they made him think of what had happened to his predecessor. Fear tingled his spine as he slipped out of his room. He tiptoed down to the side door Segra had shown him yesterday, hoping he wouldn't see her again. Hungry for a peach, he ran through the garden to the orchard. As he reached for a large golden peach, a voice barked, "And who do you think you are?" Brill gulped and turned to see a burly man gathering peaches in a large wicker basket.
I'm Brill, companion to Prince Grossder. I would like a peach."
Brill tried to sound important, but inside he felt fear. If he were breaking a palace rule, he might be in trouble. The burly man laughed. "Ha! So you're the new companion. Might as well enjoy yourself as long as you can. Eat as many peaches as you want."
"What do you mean by enjoy yourself as long as you can?"
demanded Brill. "Prince Grossder doesn't keep his companions very long. He gets bored with everything. When you spend all your time trying to have fun, you run out of ways to enjoy yourself and your life turns stale." Brill felt that he had finally met someone he could trust. He glanced around, then asked in a low voice, "Do you know a man named Stronhall? I believe he works at the palace grounds." The man's voice sank to a whisper. "I knew him. Why are you asking?" "He's my father." "Don't tell anyone else you're his son." "But why?" "Can't explain now. I have to hurry back to the kitchen with this fruit." He walked quickly away, and Brill called, "Please tell me if he's here." But the man didn't answer. Brill picked a peach and walked out of the orchard toward the forest. He shivered with fear. What kind of trouble was his father in? He had to know. But that man had warned him not to even mention his name. He ate his peach without really tasting its sweet goodness, for he was worrying about his father. He followed a path into the woods. He twirled as he heard a voice behind him. "Brill, am I glad to see you." Segra was carrying a basket of peaches and plums.
"Where are you going?"
he asked. "To the prison to take some fruit to King Talder."
"Will they let you see him?"
"No, but I have a plan." Brill grimaced. He hoped Segra's warm greeting didn't mean he was part of the plan. She continued, "The cells all have small courtyards. King Talder built the prisons. He felt that even murderers should be able to enjoy the outside air. He never dreamed he'd spend almost 10 years in one of those cells he had designed."
"Are you going to throw the fruit over the courtyard wall?"
asked Brill. She shook her head. "You can't throw peaches. I'm going to climb a tree by the wall and then let the basket down by a rope." Brill noticed she had a rope tied to the basket.
"Aren't there any guards?"
"Yes, but they only walk around the prison every half hour or so. There's plenty of time. All you need to do is help me get into the tree. The lowest branch is too high for me to reach." Brill stopped. The penalty for helping a prisoner was death.
"I don't want to get involved in rebel stuff. It's too dangerous. It won't do any good."
"I won't let King Talder die. They've cut down his food. The Emperor thinks King Talder knows where some treasure is hidden. They're trying to force him to tell."
"Why won't he tell?"
"There is no treasure. He sold the palace jewels so that he could build irrigation ditches and windmills to help the people have a better life. He can't tell them how to find gems he sold long ago to other monarchs. I think they're trying to starve him, and we're the only ones who can help."
"How do you know all this?"
"There's a little hole in the courtyard wall, and I talked to the king through that. Now that I have you to help me, it'll be a lot easier to get the food to him." She dropped her voice and stepped behind a large maple tree. "We have to watch here until we see the guards go by. Then I'll have time to climb the tree and lower the fruit."
Brill tried to think how they could get the fruit into the king without climbing the tree and risking being seen by one of the soldiers.
"Here comes the guard," whispered Segra. "He looks half asleep. We don't have to be afraid of him." When the guard had returned to the other side of the prison, Segra stepped into the clearing and motioned Brill to follow. "See, there's the tree." It was a sturdy pine with long green needles. "You help me up so that I can grab the first branch."
I'll climb it," offered Brill. "I'm taller and I can do it faster. Here, give me the fruit and rope."
"But you're wearing a red shirt. Why did you pick such a bright color?"
"I didn't know I'd be helping a prisoner. Here, give me the basket and rope."
"Let the basket of fruit down and pull it back after King Talder takes the fruit out." Brill tied the rope and basket around his waist so his hands were free. Reaching up, he grabbed a sturdy branch and pulled himself into the tree. He glanced around. There were no guards in sight. He climbed to a large branch overhanging the small courtyard. He saw the smiling face of an old gray-bearded man looking up at him. The king reminded Brill of his grandfather. Brill untied the rope around his waist and let down the basket. King Talder quickly removed the peaches and plums.
"Thank you, oh, thank you,"
he whispered. Brill pulled on the basket, but the rope caught in another branch. He leaned over to wiggle it free. Crack! The branch broke. Brill fell into the courtyard with a painful thud. His left leg crumpled under him. King Talder cried,
"My boy, you're in great danger."
"I know."
Brill's brain felt as if it were exploding from all the conflicting messages. Run, hide, climb, dig, disappear. The shooting pain in his left ankle made him dizzy, but he tried to think. He stared at his surroundings. The high stone wall had no handholds or toeholds. The tree above was too high to reach. There was no place to hide. Soon, Brill would be discovered and executed, as a rebel. End of chapter 4.